I walk into my courtroom, the scent of stale coffee and poor life choices already hanging in the air. It's a scent I know better than my own perfume. My robe feels like armor, and my gavel is a tool of clarity in a world of nonsense. The docket today is a parade of the usual foolishness. Petty thefts, neighbor disputes over a fence that's an inch to the left, and a litany of traffic violations. It's the traffic violations that wear on my patience the most. The excuses are always a masterclass in creative fiction. My eyes scan the room. Bird is already at his post, a stoic mountain of calm in my sea of controlled chaos. The gallery is sprinkled with the curious and the legally entangled, and then I see him. The next case, a man, probably in his late 50s, sitting at the defendant's table. He's not fidgeting. He's not trying to catch my eye with a pathetic, pleading look. He's just sitting there, his shoulders slumped, not with guilt, but with a profound weariness that seems to have settled deep into his bones. His file is thin, which is either a very good sign or a very bad one. I sit down, the leather of my chair groaning in protest. I don't bother with pleasantries. The truth doesn't need a welcome mat. Case number 347. I announce, my voice cutting through the low murmur of the room, the People versus Arthur Evans. I pick up the file. Simple, to the point. Driving with a suspended license. My brain immediately files it under idiocy. It's a self-inflicted wound. You get tickets, you don't pay them. You get a notice, you ignore it, you get your license suspended, and then you get behind the wheel anyway because you think the rules are for everyone else. It's a story I've heard 1,000 times. I look at the man. Mr. Evans, stand up. He rises slowly, as if every joint is arguing with him. He looks me straight in the eye. I'll give him that. Most of them look at the floor, at the ceiling, anywhere but at me. Mr. Evans, I begin, my tone sharp, clinical. On the morning of May 12th, at approximately 8:45 a.m., were you operating a 2011 Ford Taurus on the corner of Elm and Patterson? Yes, Your Honor, he says. His voice is raspy, tired. And were you aware at that time that your license to operate a motor vehicle in this state had been suspended? He hesitates. I can see the internal battle. He wants to launch into a story. I don't have time for stories. I have time for facts. Sir, that is a yes or no question. It's not complicated. Were you aware, yes or no? Yes, Your Honor, but I cut him off. A but is an excuse looking for a home, and my courtroom is not an orphanage for bad decisions. No buts. You knew you were breaking the law the second you put the key in that ignition. Is that correct? Yes, Your Honor. So, you made a conscious decision to disregard a legal order from the state. You decided that your schedule, your errands, your whatever it was more important than the law, more important than the safety of everyone else on that road. Is that what you're telling me? I lean forward, my eyes locked on his. I see a flicker of something, not anger, not shame, something closer to desperation. Your Honor, Don't, Your Honor, me. Talk to me. Why? Why would a grown man who presumably has a functioning brain do something so monumentally stupid? The room is silent. Bird hasn't moved a muscle. This is the part where the story usually comes out, the sob story. My kid was sick. I was late for a job interview. I didn't get the mail. I've heard them all. They're all variations of the same theme. It's not my fault. I wait. My patience is a finite resource, and his silence is spending it fast. I'm waiting, Mr. Evans. This shouldn't be difficult. You made the decision. You must have had a reason. Or are you just one of those people who floats through life thinking the rules don't apply to you? Because if that's the case, this is going to be a very quick and, for you, a very unpleasant proceeding. He takes a deep breath. His tired eyes hold mine. Your Honor, he says, his voice steady despite the rasp. I had to get to my dialysis appointment. The words land in the center of the room with a thud. Dialysis. That's not an errand. That's not a convenience. That's a lifeline. For the first time all day, the gears in my head stop grinding on the sheer stupidity of people and shift into a different mode. I look down at his file again, as if the single-page report could tell me more. It can't. The story isn't in the paper. It's standing right in front of me, wrapped in a worn-out coat and exhaustion. I look back up at him. The weariness in his face suddenly has a name. It's not just life. It's a fight for life. And my entire case, my entire preconceived notion of this idiot driver just fell apart. My courtroom, which I run on the simple fuel of black and white, was suddenly flooded with gray. And I hate gray. Gray, a messy, inconvenient, complicated color that has no business in the clear-cut world of right and wrong. I stare at him. The exhaustion on his face isn't just physical, it's the look of a man drowning slowly, and the law, my law, is the water filling his lungs. But I don't run my courtroom on feelings. I run it on facts. Dialysis. I repeat the word, letting it settle. It doesn't sound like an excuse, it sounds like a reason. But reasons need to be substantiated. Do you have any proof of this appointment, Mr. Evans? An appointment card? A letter from your doctor? He doesn't miss a beat. He reaches into the pocket of his thin jacket and pulls out a worn, folded piece of cardstock. He hands it to the bailiff. Bird takes it, his face impassive as ever, and brings it to me. I don't need to touch it. Bird knows what to look for. He examines it for a moment, then gives me a short, almost imperceptible nod. It's legitimate. Fresenius Kidney Care. May 12th, 9:30 a.m. He was pulled over at 8:45, less than 2 miles from the clinic. The facts line up. I hand the card back to Bird. All right, so the appointment was real. I lean back, my gaze still fixed on him. That explains where you were going. It doesn't explain why you thought you were entitled to break the law to get there. There's a bus system in this city, isn't there? There are taxis. There are services for people who need medical transport. I'm ticking off the boxes. The responsible person checklist. He's supposed to have exhausted all these options before taking the law into his own hands. The bus doesn't run that early on that route, Your Honor, he says, his voice flat, matter of fact. A taxi is $20 each way. I go 3 times a week. That's $120 a week. I live on a disability check of $900 a month. I can't afford it. And the medical transport services? They're often free or low cost through insurance. Checkmate, I think. There's always a service. You have to book them 2 days in advance, he explains, still without a trace of self-pity. And sometimes they're late. A few weeks ago, they were an hour and a half late. The clinic told me if I miss my time slot again, they'll have to give it to someone else. I can't miss it, Your Honor. I see. So the system designed to help him is unreliable at best. Another bureaucratic failure. What about friends, family, a neighbor? Surely there is someone in your life you could have asked for a ride. A shadow passes over his face. My wife passed away 3 years ago. My son is in the army, stationed in Germany. My neighbors are kind, but they work. They have their own lives. I don't want to be a burden. I don't want to be a burden. Those words hit me harder than the dialysis. It's the quiet dignity of it. The pride of a man who is trying to hold his life together with tape and string, and he's ashamed to ask for help. Now for the final piece. The reason this whole mess started. Mr. Evans, why was your license suspended in the first place? It wasn't a DUI, was it? I scanned the report again. No priors for that. No, ma'am, he says, shaking his head. Never. It was unpaid tickets. Of course it was. The poverty tax. What kind of tickets? Parking tickets, Your Honor. I almost laugh. It's not funny, but the absurdity is overwhelming. Parking tickets? You lost your license, your lifeline, over parking tickets? Where were you getting these tickets? At the racetrack? The nightclub? At the hospital, Your Honor, he says quietly. When my wife was sick, I'd take her for her chemo treatments. Sometimes we'd be in there for hours. I'd run out to feed the meter, but sometimes I couldn't leave her. So I'd get a ticket. It all piled up. After she passed, I couldn't get on top of it. The room is dead silent. Even the air seems to be holding its breath. Here is a man whose life has been systematically dismantled by tragedy and circumstance. He loses his wife to cancer. And the parting gift from the city is a stack of parking tickets that eventually costs him his driver's license. And without that license, he can't get to the treatment he needs to stay alive. It's a perfect closed loop of despair designed by a system that has no room for nuance, no space for humanity. It's a machine. And Mr. Evans is just a cog that got caught in the gears. I look at him, this man who is guilty as charged. He drove a car without a valid license. The law is clear. My job is to enforce that law. But my real job, the one they don't write in the law books, is to do justice. And what exactly is justice in a situation like this? Punishing him further feels not just pointless, but cruel. It's like kicking a man who's already at the bottom of a well. I pick up my gavel, but I don't bang it. I just hold it. The weight of it feels different today. He broke the law, yes. But the law, in this case, had broken him first. And I'm sitting up here in this robe with the power to either tighten the screws or just maybe find a better way. I look at the prosecutor, a young kid, probably still paying off student loans, who sees this as just another tick on his win column. I look back at Mr. Evans, who is waiting for the axe to fall. The legal answer is simple, but the right answer is anything but. The silence in the courtroom stretched. It was no longer the respectful silence of procedure. It was the heavy silence of a shared, uncomfortable truth. Everyone in that room, from Bird to the young prosecutor to the people in the gallery, knew this wasn't about a man who thumbed his nose at the law. This was about a man trapped. I clear my throat, my voice lower now, stripped of its usual biting edge. Mr. Evans, how much do you owe in unpaid fines? The tickets that caused the suspension. He looks down at his hands as if the number is too heavy to speak. I think with all the late fees and penalties, it's about $400, Your Honor. $400. To some people in this city, that's dinner. To this man, it's a wall he can't climb. It's the difference between legality and illegality, between self-sufficiency and desperation. It's the price of his freedom to get to a machine that keeps him alive. The absurdity of it is a bitter taste in my mouth. We have created a system where a man can be priced out of his own survival over a few parking violations. And you have no way to pay this. I state, it's not a question. No, Your Honor. After I pay my rent and my utilities from my disability check, there's not much left for food, let alone fines. I turn my attention to the prosecutor. He's looking uncomfortable, shuffling his papers. He knows where this is going. Counselor, I say, my voice regaining a measure of its authority. What is the people's recommendation in this matter? He stands, adjusts his tie. Your Honor, the defendant has admitted his guilt. He was operating a vehicle on a suspended license. The people recommend the maximum fine of $500 and a further 60-day suspension of his driving privileges. I stare at him. Is he listening to the same case I am? Is he even in the same room? Are you serious, I ask, my voice dangerously quiet? Did you hear anything this man just said? Or were you just waiting for your turn to read from a script? The prosecutor flushes, Your Honor, the law is the law. Don't you dare quote the law to me. Son, I interrupt the fire, returning to my voice. I know the law. The law also allows for judicial discretion. It allows for a judge to see a human being standing in front of them and not just a case number. You're recommending we fine a man who can't afford to eat $500. And you want to take away the license he doesn't legally have anyway for another 2 months. What precisely do you think that will accomplish? Do you think it will magically create a bus route or pay for his taxis? Or do you think it will just push him closer to the edge, forcing him to choose between breaking the law to get to dialysis or getting sicker and dying at home? The courtroom is frozen. The prosecutor looks like he wants the floor to swallow him whole. Let me tell you what we're not going to do. I continue, my eyes boring into him. We are not going to punish a man for being poor and sick. We are not going to add another brick to the wall he's already trying to climb. That is not justice. That is cruelty. I turn back to Mr. Evans. Mr. Evans, what you did was illegal. I can't ignore that. When a judge tells you not to drive, you don't drive. Period. You put yourself and others at risk, no matter how good your reason was. Do you understand that? Yes, Your Honor, I do. There's no argument in his voice, just acceptance. Good. I tap my pen on the desk. My mind is racing, not through law books, but through logistics, through solutions. Punishing him is easy. Solving the problem is hard. But I'm not here for easy. Here's what is going to happen. I am dismissing this charge. A quiet gasp ripples through the gallery. The prosecutor opens his mouth to object, but one look from me and he snaps it shut. Dismissed, I repeat, on one condition. You are not to get behind the wheel of a car again until you have a valid license in your hand. Not for dialysis, not for groceries, not for anything. Do you give me your word on that? Yes, Your Honor, absolutely. Relief is washing over his face, so palpable it's almost a physical presence. But that doesn't solve your problem, does it? I say more to myself than to him. It just puts you back where you started this morning, needing a ride you don't have. I look at Bird. He meets my gaze, his expression unchanging, but I know he's thinking the same thing I am. This can't be the end of it. We can't just toss him back out the door into the same impossible situation. I take a breath. Mr. Evans, you said you owe $400 in old parking fines. Yes, Your Honor. All right. I open my checkbook. It's a breach of protocol. It's probably a dozen different kinds of judicial misconduct. And at this particular moment, I couldn't care less. I scribble out the date and the name. City Clerk's Office. I write the amount. 400 and 0 over 100. I sign my name at the bottom with a flourish. Judith Shaindlin. Not Judge Judy. The woman, not the robe. I rip the check out and hand it to Bird. Bailiff, please escort Mr. Evans down to the clerk's office. Use this to pay his fines in full. Get a receipt and get the paperwork started to have his license reinstated. Do not come back to this courtroom until that is done. Bird takes the check without a word. His face a perfect mask of professionalism, but I see a flicker of something in his eyes. Understanding, respect. Mr. Evans is just staring at me, his mouth slightly open. Tears are welling in his tired eyes. Your Honor, I don't know what to say. Don't say anything. I say, my voice firm to cover the crack I feel in my own composure. Just go get your license back and then go to your dialysis appointments. And don't you ever let me see you in this courtroom again. Are we clear? Yes, Your Honor, he whispers, the tears finally spilling over and tracing paths through the weary lines on his face. Thank you. I wave a dismissive hand. Get him out of here, Bird. Bird puts a steadying hand on Mr. Evans's elbow and guides him out of the courtroom. The room slowly starts to breathe again. I look at the prosecutor, who is staring at his shoes. Next case, I say, my voice like gravel. And it had better be a good one. I didn't become a judge to make people's lives harder. I became a judge to fix things. And for the first time all day, I felt like I had. The next case is called Two Millennials, a boy and a girl, who look like they've never had a real problem in their entire lives. They were roommates. The issue? A 50-inch television and a security deposit. It's like plunging into a kiddie pool after swimming in the deep ocean. My mind is still on Mr. Evans, on the quiet dignity of his struggle. And now I have to listen to this. The universe has a sick sense of humor. All right, who's first? I snap, my patience already worn down to a nub. Somebody talk. I don't have all day. The young woman, the plaintiff, launches into a rambling story about how the defendant, her ex-roommate, maliciously and with extreme prejudice broke her television. She uses air quotes when she says her television. I already hate this case. Stop, I command. Let's get some facts, because your story is putting me to sleep. Is the television in your name? Did you pay for it? Well, she begins, we bought it together, but I paid for more of it. and it was in my room. I look at the defendant, a young man with a haircut that costs more than Mr. Evans's weekly food budget. She paid for more of it? Is that true? We split it 50-50, he says with a shrug. I have the bank statement. He slides a piece of paper across the table. So, you're a liar, I say to the plaintiff, my voice flat. That's a bad way to start in my courtroom. You just lied to a judge. How do you think this is going to go for you? She turns red. It felt like I paid more. Oh, it felt like it? I lean forward. This isn't a therapy session. I don't care about your feelings. I care about the truth. And the truth is, you just perjured yourself over a television. Let's move on. He broke it? How? He had a party, she whines. And his friend Kyle was playing a video game, like super intensely, and he threw the controller and it hit the screen. I turn to the defendant. Is that what happened? Yes, he admits. But it was an accident. My friend Kyle said he'd pay for it, but he lost his job. And it was a shared TV. It was in the living room, not her room. It was in my room for the last month, she shrieks. Only because you were hoarding it. He shoots back. Enough! My voice cracks like a whip. They both flinch and fall silent. You two are giving me a headache. You had a communal television. Your friend broke it. It was an accident. The person who should be here is Kyle, but since he's conveniently unemployed, you two have decided to bring your playground squabble into a court of law. I feel a weary disgust settle over me. An hour ago, I was dealing with a man's life, a real life, with real problems, kidney failure, poverty, grief. He was fighting for his next breath, and these two children are in front of me, screaming about a broken toy. The contrast is so stark it makes my teeth ache. This is the nonsense that clogs the arteries of the justice system. The petty, pointless, self-absorbed grievances of people who have never known a day of real hardship. My focus is shot. My mind keeps drifting back to the hallway, to Bird and Mr. Evans. Did they get to the clerk's office? Is there a line? Will there be some other bureaucratic snag that throws a wrench in this? A part of me, the part that has seen it all, is braced for failure. The system is designed to create problems, not solve them. And what about the security deposit, I ask, forcing myself back to the pathetic case in front of me. He claims you kept it illegally. The apartment was a mess, she says, her voice rising in indignation. There were stains on the carpet from the party. I have pictures, he says, pulling out his phone. It was spotless. She's just keeping it because she's mad I moved out to live with my girlfriend. Oh, so this is what this is about, I say, a bitter smile on my face. A breakup. You're not here about a TV or a carpet stain. You're here because your little romance fell apart and you want to use me and my courtroom to get one last shot in at each other. Am I right? They both stare at their feet. The truth has a way of silencing even the most committed fools. You should be ashamed of yourselves, I say, my voice low and seething, wasting court time and resources on this garbage. There are people out there with real problems. Just then, the courtroom door opens. It's Bird. He walks with his usual unhurried purposefulness to his post. He doesn't look at me, not yet. He just stands there, waiting, but I know he has the answer. I hold up a hand, silencing the two children at the podiums. Don't say another word, either of you. I turn my chair slightly, my full attention now on my bailiff. The entire courtroom seems to fade away. All that matters is the silent report I am about to receive. Bailiff, I say, my voice calm and even, do you have something for me? Bird meets my eyes. He gives a single, sharp nod. He walks up to the bench and places a piece of paper in front of me. It's a receipt from the city clerk's office. Stamped across the top in red ink are two beautiful words, paid in full. Underneath it is another form, a temporary permit. The fines are cleared, Judge Bird says, his voice a low rumble. The DMV is processing the reinstatement. They gave Mr. Evans a 30-day temporary license, effective immediately. He asked me to give you this. He places a small, folded piece of notebook paper next to the receipt. I pick it up. The handwriting is a little shaky. I unfold it. There are only 3 words written on it. God bless you. I fold the note carefully and slide it under my blotter. I take a slow breath. The system didn't fail today. We beat it. I look down from the bench at the 2 vapid, bickering children in front of me. Their faces a mixture of confusion and impatience. The headache is gone. My purpose is crystal clear again. My courtroom is not a playground. It's a place for justice. And sometimes it's a place for fixing things. I just fixed something that mattered. Now it was time to take out the trash. Now, I say, turning back to them, my voice like ice. Where were we? Ah, yes. You were about to tell me why I shouldn't throw both of your claims out and charge you for the cost of my dry cleaning. The 2 of them stood there, mouths agape, looking like a pair of fish who'd just been unceremoniously dumped from their bowl. The whiplash of my change in tone had clearly short-circuited their entitlement. You, I said, pointing a finger at the plaintiff, the young woman, you lied to me. You came in here with a fabricated story about your TV because you were feeling vengeful. You wasted the court's time with a petty grievance masquerading as a legal dispute. Your claim is dismissed with prejudice. That means you can't refile. Ever. You don't get a single dime for that television. She started to sputter. But he... Quiet, I thundered. I'm not done. You abused the process. You think this is a stage for your personal drama? It's not. Judgment for the defendant on the plaintiff's claim. I banged the gavel once. A sharp, final crack. Now my eyes swiveled to the defendant. He had a smug little smile on his face, thinking he'd won. That smile was about to vanish. And you, I said, my voice dropping again, you're not getting off easy. While she may be a liar, you are an irresponsible child. You hosted a party where your property was destroyed, and then you stood by while your ex-roommate, who you were in a relationship with, had to shoulder the emotional and financial fallout. And this security deposit business, you left her in the lurch, and now you want to nickel and dime her over carpet stains? But I have pictures, he protested. I don't care about your pictures, I shot back. I care about character. You know what you should have done? You should have been a man. You should have told your friend Kyle, job or no job, you broke our TV and you're going to pay for it. Even if it's $20 a month, and you should have helped clean up your own party mess instead of leaving it for her to deal with. Judgment for the plaintiff on the countersuit, I declared, in the full amount of the security deposit. You will pay her back every cent. Maybe it'll teach her to take some responsibility for your own life and the messes you create. I looked from one stunned face to the other. Now both of you get out of my courtroom. The sight of you is turning my stomach. They scurried away like startled roaches. Good riddance. The rest of the day was a blur of the usual foolishness, but my mind wasn't on it. Underneath the drone of testimony about borrowed lawnmowers and fender benders, my thoughts kept returning to Mr. Evans, to the note folded neatly under my blotter. God bless you. It wasn't praise I was after. It was the feeling of a balance righted. The feeling that for one person on one day, the monolithic, impersonal machine of justice had been forced to bend to the shape of a single human life. When the last case was done and the gallery had cleared out, I sat for a moment in the silence. The room felt different, bigger. The stale air didn't seem so suffocating. I packed my briefcase, the weight of the files feeling lighter than usual. As I was leaving, Bird was waiting by the door. Good day, Judge, he said. It was his standard closing line, but there was a warmth in it that wasn't always there. It was Bird, I replied. It was a good day. I walked out of the courthouse and into the late afternoon sun. The city was a cacophony of horns and sirens, the usual soundtrack to my life. But I thought about Mr. Evans driving home legally in his old Ford Taurus. A temporary paper license taped to his window, a symbol of a small victory won against a system that so often grinds people like him to dust. He wasn't just driving to his next appointment. He was driving with a bit of his dignity restored. People think my job is about punishment. They see the yelling, the sharp tongue, the impatience, They think it's about banging a gavel and sending people away. They're wrong. My job is about clarity. It's about cutting through the noise, the lies, and the excuses to find the simple, hard truth at the center of a mess. And once you find that truth, you have a choice. You can use the law as a hammer to smash things further, or you can use it as a tool to build something better. Today, we built something. It wasn't a monument. It wasn't a landmark case that would be studied in law schools. It was small and quiet and deeply personal. It was a $400 check and a temporary driver's license. It was a man who wouldn't have to choose between the law and his life tomorrow. I got into my car and started the engine. As I pulled out into the stream of traffic, I knew that tomorrow I'd be back in that courtroom, facing a new parade of foolishness. And I'd be sharp, and I'd be impatient, and I would not suffer fools. But I also knew, with a certainty that settled deep in my bones, that I would be looking for the truth. And if I was lucky, I might get another chance to do some actual good. I might get another chance to fix something that was broken. For a judge, on any given day, that's the best you can hope for.